So anyways, when you get into record shit, like the biggest shit, surprisingly, is always shit found dead or got hit by a car. Like hunters don't get the biggest stuff. There might be some case I'm not thinking of where, but like the biggest whitetail isn't the biggest whitetail hunted. It just got found.
What's the biggest whitetail that was ever found?
It's in the 300s or something like that. It's like Jamie can find that. Like something non-typical.
Where was that?
I don't even remember.
Is that Canada?
I can't remember where. No, it was in the lower 48, I think. Yeah.
The sheep hunting world is another bizarre,
crazy
subset world.
That's big money. Whitetails is blue collar.
What?
The hole in the horn buck.
That's a real. Is that a farm buck?
No. That's a buck, man.
Like a farm buck, right?
No,
I believe you. But it looks like a farm buck found dead by railroad workers. The deer is the king of kings.
Got a bullet hole through his horn.
Does it really? Wow, where someone shot it. Look at the size of that thing. That's so ridiculous.
That's the broder buck.
355 2/8.
But when you get into non-typical, the score is a lot higher. You know, we were talking about faking bucks. The way they score bucks is one thing that's so goofy about how you score bucks is a buck can have its antlers count against itself. You're familiar with this?
No.
No one I know that likes to hunt takes this. No one I personally hang out with takes any of this seriously, but they view that like a typical should be really symmetrical. But it has to be super atypical to be counted as a non-typical. So if you have a buck, let's say you have a buck that has 5 points on one side and 6 points on the other side, and you measure up all the inches of antler, they'll actually deduct the difference off the score because it's not symmetrical. So the thing will grow antler that they don't actually count. But if it's so freakishly different, if it hits a threshold of asymmetry, then its asymmetry counts in its favor. So it can actually happen that you could feasibly kill a buck and break and take a pair of pliers or a hammer and knock a point off its horns, and it actually becomes a higher scoring deer.
Oh, that's so dumb. Isn't that a weird thing though? Like one of the things that I really admire about John Dudley, he doesn't score his bucks. He goes, I just think it's gross.
Yeah.
He goes, it's a great mature buck. It's a great mature bull, and John is one of those guys that has an enormous farm that he caters to whitetails.
Yep.
I mean, he does the whole thing. He does food plots. He does controlled burns. I mean, he details it. If you go to Knock On Archery, his Instagram page, well, obviously, John teaches, right? So he teaches archery. He also teaches tactics on how to hunt these big bucks and what he does in terms of like how he develops the habitat and how he doesn't go in under certain winds.
Yep.
And he rides in on an electric bike so he doesn't leave his scent when he walks. Like, he's very, very serious.
Just obsessive. Yep.
Oh, he's obsessive. He moved to Iowa specifically to hunt bucks.
Yep.
That's why he moved there and documented the whole thing and obsessed with it. I mean, you can't talk to him during that time of the year. He's in a free stand, period. And he'll get like a hit list buck, like that he has photos of these bucks. I don't think he names them. He might name them. I'm not sure.
You can't not name them or else everything's that one buck.
Right. Yeah. Well, I think
we were naming bulls the other day, and we just went from one just so we knew what we were talking about. Like the first one was Uno.
That's a good way to do it.
You can't help like people dog on naming them, but you can't. You go spend a day hunting where you're watching a couple bucks, and you're gonna start referring to them in some way that you'd be like, look, there's that one buck over there.
Yeah.
And then that other buck over there. Eventually, you're like, the 3x5.
Right.
Somehow, it's like normal. It's like normal communication that you give them a name, but people have a heyday with it, and they get clever with it.
Yeah. So, I do like the fact that John doesn't measure them though.
Yeah,
he just looks for a
I used to think it was distasteful. Even though my dad measured deer, I grew up around measuring deer. Like people bring their deer to my dad's house, and he'd give you like an official score. And I overthought it to the point where I thought it was distasteful. But then I really like mule deer. It's the only thing I have that I've ever measured was mule deer, and it just is a way to I don't know. Talking
you
to
never
other
measured
people.
any of your bulls?
No. One of the guys I work with, Corey, man, he said I'm gonna come over and measure that buck. I'm gonna come over and measure that bull.
I think you should measure it. It looks a little bigger than that, but it doesn't matter. It's an amazing bull.
Yeah, it doesn't, but it's fun, and I don't have to worry about if someone like thinks that it breeds some level of disrespect. If I disrespect mule deer, I don't know what respecting them looks like.
No, it's not. There is a thing though that people do where they become obsessed with the number only.
Sure,
that does get weird, but that does things with anything that's quantifiable. You know, billionaires get obsessed with a guy. You know, you have 100 billion, and the guy has 130 billion. You get obsessed with beating him. You know, they get obsessed with their rankings on the world's richest man thing. I'm sure they do. You know, I don't think Elon does, but I think a lot of those guys do. They get obsessed with that number. They want to be the number one guy. It's a number thing with people.
The writer Pat Durkin, he covers. He used to be the editor at Deer and Deer Hunting and covers wildlife and everything. He had said how he's got a couple quotes I like. One is, "Big deer make people stupid," and two is he was telling me one time about he used to cover a lot of big buck killers. Okay, so in his job, he used to have to track down, like, someone killed a new big buck. Like, they chase the story. They'll pay for rights to tell the story. Mm-hmm. And he was always dismayed on a lot of these guys that would just consistently kill these big bucks. He was always surprised. He goes, they can't. If you ask them what kind of tree it was they were sitting in, they can't tell you.
Wow.
You know, and he's like that changed his view on some of the real, like, consistent big buck guys. It's a subtle thing, but he's like he was like, somehow it surprised him that you could be so proficient at that, but not be like what he would regard as a woodsman.
Yeah, I've always been impressed with woodsmen. People can tell you, oh, over there by the cedars, you see that juniper? I'm like, what? Which one's what? How the fuck do you know? What are you doing?
Yeah, I can't remember. I'm not doing a terrible disservice to how he put it, but it was basically that, like, it knocked it down in his mind that you could get so good at it without having like what he regarded as the fundamentals,
an overall comprehensive knowledge of the woods. Yeah.
And it's like you could kind of get it. You could get that. And not get the things that he always grew up thinking you needed to have that.